Hey boys and girls, we are checking Module 6, Lesson 8, Problem Set, and this will be found in your workbooks. So on this one, we have a whole lot of data given to us. So Delilah stops under a silver maple tree and collects leaves. At home, she measures the widths of the leaves to the nearest 1/4 inch and records the measurements as shown below. So our job, if you look at A, is to use the data to create a line plot. So we're going to use this data, and this is something you should have already done. So I titled mine Width of Silver Maple Tree Leaves because that's what it is, and I kind of took that off the chart up here. So the first thing I did is I had to look at all the measurements and decide which was the smallest width and which was the largest to see what my scale would be on my line plot. So I determined that the smallest was 5.5 inches and the largest was 6 3/4 or 6 3/4 of an inch. And then I did my key at the bottom. Each leaf is worth 1x, and I labeled them in inches. And then I determined that there were 6 different measurements. So I labeled those at the bottom of my line plot, and then I added my x's. Now, a good thing to always do is, the good thing to always do is, after I put an x for 5 3/4, put that x in, I would put a check mark here. So I know I've counted that one. And then I'll go to the 6, put my x, and then put a check mark by that. That way I know I'm getting all of the data points for my line plot. So this is what my line plot looks. So for 5.5 inches, I have 1 silver maple tree leaf. For 5 3/4, I have 5 leaves. For 6 inches, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. For 6 1/4, or 6 1/4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. For 6.5, I have 4. And for 6 3/4, I have 1. So if you need to pause this video to compare your your line plot to my line plot, you can do that now. If you're ready to go, we're going to go to the next page. So on part B, there's actually a lot of writing here. It says, explain the steps you took to create the line plot. Now, yours might be in a different order. You might have some extra steps in there, but these were my steps. So the first thing I did was I found the smallest and largest measurements on the chart to find where to start and end my line plot. So I marked and labeled my scale, and that means I put the inches at the bottom and made the line that I'm going to put my plots on. The number 2 is I marked and labeled my scale. Number 3 is I recorded the data by marking X's above the measurements. And I think it's a good idea to go up and put a check mark when you've done that measurement. And then number 4 is I wrote a title and made a key and labeled the measurements with the word inches. So those were the steps I took. Maybe on number 4, you did that earlier than I did, and that's okay. But that's what I did. On part C, how many more leaves were 6 inches wider than 6.5 inches wide? So I had 8 leaves that were 6 inches wide, and I had 4 leaves that were 6.5 inches. So I subtracted 8 minus 4. So there were 4 more leaves. 4 more leaves were Sorry, I left out the 6 there. 4 more leaves were 6 inches wide than 6.5 inches wide. And that's why I should always go back and read my work, and I should have done that on that. So I should have had the word 6 right here, or the number. The next one is find the 3 most frequent measurements on the line plot. What does this tell you about the typical width of a silver maple tree leaf? Now, you may have come up with a different point that you wanted to make, but this is what I put. So the three most frequent measurements on the line plot are 5 3/4 inches, 6 inches, and 6 1/4 inches. This tells me that most of the leaves are between 5 3/4 and 6 1/4 or 6 1/4 inches wide. So that's kind of what I did, and you may have a different answer and come up with something different than me, and that's okay too. So don't forget to do your exit ticket and turn that into us. And if you have any questions, let us know.